Ladies and gentlemen, guten Nacht and bienvenidos, and welcome to Über Cinco, the podcast game show where we deep dive top fives. Today, our contestants will reveal and defend their top 5 broken promises of higher education. Oof. Matriculating for us today are the 2 grand old masters of Über Cinco, Brian Ernst and Mitch Brinkman. Mitch, welcome to you. I am judging today, and you and I were randomly assigned freshman year roommates, so if your list includes any disappointments due to your dorm living situation, be prepared to face a stern penalty. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I will say one of the it wasn't a promise, but it was a surprise. I didn't expect to get paired with a debilitating gambling addict my first year of college, but you know what? It taught me a lot. So I thank you for that.
I'm glad my downward spiral could be a ray of hope for someone else. Brian, you also went to DePaul University, but you were several years younger than Mitch and I. You were, I believe, still in preschool by the time we graduated, so you probably have a very different experience.
I do, and I think we will get into some of those differences, but I feel like we all came across the same type of people while going to that school, just at different age levels. So hopefully we will tackle that later on.
And let's stop and just give a couple facts about DePaul University. It's America's largest private Catholic university. It's the #1 university in Chicago. Only about 2,500 of its students live on campus, and the rest, which when we were there at its peak population, 16,000 students, that means the overwhelming majority were commuter students. So that creates kind of a weird transient college population. And the people traveling in, they always had a weird smell to them. You know, I feel like you can never trust them. I didn't want to leave my laptop near them, you know, when I was going to the restroom. I always had to keep one eye open, you know, when you're dealing with those commuter students. So, of course, Nathan and I lived on campus, you know, the true blue demons at the core of the community. So, DePaul, Chicago is your campus. Okay.
that was the tagline. I was a tour guide for a couple of years, and I was contractually obligated to say stuff like that. That was a fun job. That was a fun job because I love some parts of DePaul. I dislike some parts as we go through. You know, I think that's just part of every stage of life, is there's pros and cons, but basically, I figured out how to do that job well. It was just, you talk sports with the dads, you flirt with the moms, you say good things about the school, and boom, I got great reviews. I got a raise. I was making $11 a tour by the end, guys. $11.
Wow.
Holy cow. Well, I'm going to have some hard-hitting questions for you later than Nathan, because you might know better about DePaul University than I when I was a student there. So
I can tell you everything about how things were in 2008. I've got that down.
No, that's great.
No idea what's going on now.
There's no way anything's changed. It's exactly the same. Nothing's changed. So...
All right, well, today's topic, this is actually an audience submission provided by our favorite person in the entire universe, Jess Trueblood. And if you would like your turn at being our favorite person in the entire universe and have your topic debated on an upcoming episode of Über Cinco, head on over to bizbear.biz, hit us with your ideas, we may just use it. All right, we know the topic, we know our guests. If this is your first time in the den, let's wake you out of hibernation with a quick rundown of the rules. Each player in the den has spent time with today's topic arranging their top 5 answers in order of importance. Those answers have been submitted to the host, who will moderate the game, awarding points to the player with the most poignant answer.
Starting with their number 5 choice, we will move up the ranks until we reach each of their top answers. But if both contestants happen to have the same answer on their list, well, we have an Uber stare-down.
You will hear the official Über Cinco siren, and both players must reveal their answer and what number they ranked their submission. An Uber stare-down is all or nothing, with one player earning 3 points. After all answers have been read, the host will reveal the final score.
And don't forget to stick around to the end, where I, Nathan Hennenfent, will rattle off my Fast 5 send-off of the top 5 greatest numbers of all time.
Wow.
That's a list.
All right.
457.
Without further ado, let's get started. I would like Mr. Brian Ernst to start us off with his number 5 broken promise of higher education.
All right. So I think I need to be very clear as a white male from the United States. Everything that's being said today comes from a place of extreme privilege. I love going to college, of having the experience. Life is going good, but the financial stress of college and dealing with life is still very much a real concern. And the number 5 broken promise of higher education is that it's the best choice. No, it's not. I know a lot of non-book smart people that are freaking great with their hands or natural born salesmen and women, but college is not the best choice for everyone, and I'm sick of it being touted as the only choice. So I remember watching a YouTube video once based on a recent article that had come out that broke down a plumber versus a doctor on their net worth journey. And they broke even at age 42 with $1.5 million, not counting for whatever they spent their money on. That if you took a certain part of your salary and you saved and this and the doctor coming out of debt, they both broke even at 42, having the same amount of money. But the doctor was obviously up until debt into that point, and the plumber had been growing in a yearly salary since he started and may even have his own business by this point. So who is anyone to tell anyone else that you need to go down that path of college and not doing this thing if you happen to be good with your hands and have a business mindset and want to start your own thing? Everyone is different, and that doesn't need to be a promise that you have to go to college.
I would also like to point out, though, that both the doctor and the plumber at some point had to touch somebody else's poop. And
that's very true.
So really, both of them are the losers, in my opinion.
Those old proctology plumbers. I think the new promise should be that you should just get your shit together after high school, get a real job for a few years, learn the value of money, and then make a solid decision, instead of now where the current path is you need to know exactly what you're doing with your life by 8th grade so that you can do what you need to do in high school to join the right programs, to get into the right school, to get the right job. It's a bunch of malarkey, to quote our current commander in chief. And that's the thing I think that's the biggest lie that we've probably been fed for the longest time, that it's the only choice. Therefore, a broken promise.
I think that's fair. We talked on an earlier episode a couple weeks ago of this show about how irresponsible people are between the ages of 16 and 18.
Yes.
And it was an immense amount of pressure to be, I remember trying to choose where I was going to go to college, and it's such a huge decision. And is anybody actually really have an idea what they want to do with their life when they're 18? That seems like an unbelievable amount of pressure, because then you talk to people who are like in their 40s who say things like, oh, I still don't know what I want to do. And these are people who are sometimes often very successful. So how is a 16 or 17-year-old going to have any clue what the best decision is? Really, they're just blindly throwing at a dartboard and hoping things stick. It's a bizarre system.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people who are way happier that just didn't go to college. They didn't start out in debt. They didn't start out with this, and they are living kind of the 50s dream. They already have a house with a mortgage that they can afford. They've already started a family. They've already done this. I don't know anybody personally in my life who's gone to college who is at that point already in their life from my circle. I'm like, that's such the attainable thing that you want. And it's really, really hard to get right now, especially with the decisions made to go to college.
Mitch, over to you, man.
Wait for number 5 or just am I trying to?
Well, do you have any
Brian's thing here?
You have any thoughts on this? This is a pretty big sort of overarching number 5 here, sort of the whole system. Is there any response you have?
I think that I hate to play party pooper here, but I think Brian's anecdote of plumber versus doctor is a little oversimplified. Because there's also, to become a plumber, that is specialized training you have to do. So you have to do some sort of higher ed. It's not just you just become a plumber one day. And then also that's assuming that you probably are a union plumber, that you got to get into the union. And then also you have the access to capital and the ability to start your own business, which not everyone has that. So I think it needs to
go without saying that they need to be a smart worker, have to want the drive to attend an apprenticeship. And yes, they do have to invest in it, but I'm not saying they have to go 4 years, put themselves in debt and get a piece of paper that may or may not be worth something to them.
Sure. Yeah. And,
But
and
how many beer bongs do they do a week at plumbing trade school?
I don't know, but I want to go and find out.
Yeah, I think, really it seems like a lot of, the main power of going to certain colleges is really just access to the network, right? I mean, and if you have the ability to have it all and hang with it with the GPA as well, your ability to have your cake and eat it too. That's really just that small test, and then like you gain entree to that next level, essentially.
I'll talk about that later, but I don't think the network is worth what they say it's worth.
Well,
yeah, I mean, my network is you two assholes, so I guess.
No, you guys are the good part of the network, but like it's like who you decide to be in your immediate circle, I guess, is technically a network. But like just because you went there and having the ability to say like, oh, we went there at the same time, remember me? That part of the networking aspect of it has never really paid off.
Yeah, well, and also I think DePaul University is not in the echelon of schools where the network is very powerful and it can flex for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's maybe I should have been more specific in saying you need to go to that top.
Maybe the
tier.
business school kids might have a little bit.
Yeah,
more.
because let's be honest,
Jillian
DePaul's
Anderson
not top
was
tier.
amazing. She was amazing as Margaret Thatcher in The Crown this year, and she was from the theater school at DePaul. So we've got some clout. All right. Let's keep it going, Mitch, with your number 5.
Sure. Yeah. My number 5 is intern into mediocrity. I'm calling it. We got a first stare down in a while.
Ooh, we're back at it.
After several episodes of stare downless abstract nonsense, we've finally come back to the heart of the show. And so Mitch, restate your number 5, please, for the record.
Sure, yeah. My number 5 is I'm calling it intern to mediocrity.
Okay, and that's going to match up with Brian's number 2. Brian, your number 2 is stated as
you'll get the best experience.
All right, so we'll get into how these overlap here with Brian, but Mitch, the floor is yours. Please provide us the number 5.
Sure, yeah. So my experience in this was that, again, you come in and you tour the program and they say, we have an incredible, I got a finance degree. They say, we have incredible connections here in Chicago. You will have your pick of the litter when it comes to internships. Again, you can flex that Chicago network. Outside Chicago, the network doesn't really flex or work, but in Chicago, flex that network. And so I came time to get myself internships, and then quickly found out that unless you were gung-ho about it from like 18 on and also probably knew someone, those internships weren't really all that tasty or delicious. And so this was my first day. Welcome to Tipperman Wealth Group, a subdivision of Solomon Smith Barney, a subsidiary of JP Morgan Chase. And so I spent my whole days on the phone calling people that were about to retire, people that had dealt with, workplace baloney and bull roar for already a couple of decades. And then they hear my voice on the other end. Hey, mister, how you doing? You want to give me all your money and put it into Tipperman Wealth Group to make retirement great? And then they're like, who the fuck is calling me? Oh, my name is Mitch Brinkman. I'm from Tipperman Wealth Group. And then they're like, yeah, okay, why are you calling me? How'd you get my number? And then I'd say, well, I got it off my call sheet. I got from my supervisor, Liz. And then it never went well because no one who's about to retire wants to hear anything about retirement planning from a 20-year-old. And it's not like I was even like giving them advice, of course. This was just the first cold call to try and get them to sign up. And I think the most demoralizing thing was I'd have you have to do multiple call sheets in a day. Let's say 4 columns per sheet, like 30 numbers per column. So it's 120 numbers per sheet. And I had to do like 4 in a day, basically.
Ugh.
And there would be horizontal crossouts on, probably about, 118 per page. It was like 2 per page. They'd be like, you know what? Mitch from Tipperman Wealth Group. Yeah, I'll take your pamphlet. Send the pamphlet over. I'll take a look. And then I'm like, well, Tipperman Wealth Group offers an elevated sense of money management that will make your money work for you. And they're like, yeah,
send the pamphlet.
Like, I've got a 10-minute work break and I've spent 8 of it talking to you. Just send the goddamn pamphlet. And then you're like, oh, is this email correct? And then they just hang up on you and you hope we already had the right email or the right contact info.
Dear Lord, yeah, this is terrible.
It was awful. It was very awful. And they tracked, of course, how many calls you made and that you had to do training and whatnot.
Were these calls recorded by chance?
Yes. Yeah. They were recorded, but they weren't like reviewed on a daily basis. I'm sure just in the case of a lawsuit or in case of me yelling like, well, go suck a dog's dick and fuck yourself, Mr. Anderson. They probably go review that one. But and my supervisor, because I was the only intern, there was like a room of 8 of us probably. The only intern that had any I had done improv training by then, that kind of stuff. So I was the only one who was comfortable just talking to someone on a phone, really. And so she would train me up, and she'd be like, "Wow, you're gonna be ready to do this. You're so easy and relaxed on the phone." But then I just knew. I was like, I don't want to take any more time than I have to of these poor people's time to try and trick them into talking to like Gary Tipperman, who's probably, got gold cufflinks, is going to try and swindle them out of their money for a commission fee. And so it made me so sad. And I started just dialing the numbers and then hanging up. Like I wouldn't do the calls. I'd just make it look like I dialed my numbers. And I told this to one of my coworkers. His name was Steven, this tall, gangly fuck. And he told on me. He fucking ratted me out. And Liz, the supervisor, asked me to do like a lunch hangout with her. And she said, Mitch, so I know that you aren't doing your full calls. And, we think maybe that this internship isn't for you. And I said, it absolutely is not. I would love to leave right now. And I got it. And I got it, and I did not finish the day out. I left right then and there, and I felt amazing. So
wow,
what a gangly asshole!
Was this for? Did you still receive any class credit, or was this just for experience sake?
I think at that point I had already done all the credits I needed. So this was just for $10 an hour, and for networking connections or
at least it was paid.
Yeah. But I mean, there was no commission. Like we didn't get $5 for every person we got to agree to a pamphlet. Nothing like that. It was utter baloney.
Because your commission would be worth more than the pamphlet.
Exactly.
You were being used for your unskilled labor, basically, under the pretense of this being some sort of glamorous in for you into the financial industry. Mm-hmm. It's a classic tale.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, all right, Brian, your number 2, I believe, is going to cover some of the same territory. Let's hear what you have to say.
So yeah, my number 2 again was called "You'll Get the Best Experience," being the broken promise. I got a couple of bone to picks here. For one, I cannot stand the idea of the unpaid internship. It's like students are already paying for college. Now, if they're going to work for your company for free, they can't go earn an income to make food. It's just like, if you're working for your company, you need to pay them, period. So the promises of going to working for 3 months for free in hopes that you get this job, I think it's just a horrible system. And 2, for me, luckily, I never had an unpaid internship. I always had usually pretty decent summer jobs. 1, I worked for the Dominic's Warehouse, a now defunct grocery store in the Chicago area, where I picked 45,000 pounds a night to ship onto trucks. The next summer, I worked maintenance doing the same thing at the company, except I had to go paint yellow safety thing on all the cones that needed new coat of paint, as well as grinding the rust off of the air conditioner on the roof. And then another year, I was a retail operations consultant for Verizon Wireless, where I was a 19-year-old guy going into stores and telling managers how they're running their store wrong. Which was...
I wish I could have seen this.
So
this is delicious.
So not only was I a rock, as they called us, an ROC, we actually had to do some mystery shopper experience where we'd be like, all right, we're really trying to push netbooks next quarter. Can you please go dress up in street clothes, go hit these 5 locations in a day and try and get someone to sell you a netbook. We need to know how much our employees really know about this topic. So those were actually fun. You
were like James Bond.
That was pretty fun. I was not going to lie. That was pretty fun.
I want that job. They wouldn't even have to pay me. I would do this as an unpaid internship today as a 34-year-old man.
It was the best job ever. It was like somewhere between $16 and $17 an hour plus 55 cents a mile.
To engage in subterfuge? This is incredible.
That was a great job. It got to the point though where it was like, I still never really understood what the checklist was for every time I went to a store. I didn't know what to look for. So I ended up just giving everybody good grades because I didn't want to shit on anybody. So I was not good at that job. Anyway, this brings me to the worst experience that I believe you could get at DePaul University, and that is paying to be a part of Project Blue Light. Let me tell you what Project Blue Light is. The dumbest program I ever refused to take part in. You, an aspiring filmmaker, pay full price for a summer class to work on a movie written, directed, and produced by a professor. Let me say that again. You paid college prices to fulfill someone else's dream. And the movies were fucking awful. They were terrible, which means they should have just been student films all along. Why not try and teach a student to be a director, producer, writer? Ugh. The gig was always in place to attract talent to boost enrollment. I get that. So it was a marketing ploy, but from an education standpoint, it's just the program was an absolute travesty. And I'm sure it's changed a little bit, but I went to the website today and I still see faculty directors listed on their promotion page as recent as 2018. So I'm assuming the program is exactly the same. So a failed filmmaker who is now a teacher gets to take their script that's been in a drawer that nobody else has wanted to make forever. They get to use student labor and school money to produce this movie and fulfill their dreams while everybody else pays to be there. Now, the easiest way to fix this program is just make it staff supervised. And maybe senior undergrads and master students are the only ones who actually get their project made. Because I have no problem with undergrads working on a master student piece. At least that's all students working together with some chaperoning from professors. But they should all be paid for their time with actual cash or free classes. Like, that's the benefit of going to the school, is to have access to equipment and people and experiences. And you didn't get that with that. So instead of being a work for hire grip on Professor What's-His-Face's who teaches editing 2 on 2 versions back of Final Cut, I went to go be a retail operations consultant at Verizon Wireless, and look at me now. All right.
I certainly could name some names of the people who were, but I won't. There were some people at DePaul who I still very much love and respect, who may have had a hand in some of this, but yeah, I was there for this, and I refused. I only took part in one blue light thing, and that was because I was going to be an extra, because one of the other girls who was going to be an extra, who, like, I had a car, so I drove everybody there. It was at a racetrack. And I was trying to hook up with one of the other girls who was going to be an extra. P.S. Mission failed. But anyways, that was my one day on set at a blue light thing. And
I do get that. Like, if I'm a professor in that position, I would probably take advantage of the program. But if I'm the head of the school, this program would never have existed. Because, I mean, if it was completely voluntary to work on it and I just had to give up my summer to work on it, I think I would have done it. Like, hey, cool, I'm going to give up my time. I'm going to go learn something. Absolutely no problem. But the fact that I had to pay to be there is the travesty of it all.
Well, and to work on a film called P.S. Mission Failed, I mean, I feel like that doesn't give you a lot of confidence, you know? No one's going into this thinking we're gonna succeed. We're thinking this is gonna suck, and it should.
I was probably the worst extra ever. It was me.
Did you make a lot of camera eye contact?
Well, here's the scenario. It was me with a carload full of really attractive girls, and I'm 21 years old, and it's at a racetrack while there are races going on. And so I'm like, gamble. I just want to talk to all these pretty ladies and go gamble on the horses. Like, I didn't care about the movie. That was all I had to do was walk and pretend that I was talking to somebody, and they had a problem getting me to do that. So it was. Anyways, I need to score this round.
Nathan. What was your the thing you were mouthing while you were being an extra to make it look like you were having a conversation in the background?
I think I kept saying things like, "God damn it, you 2-bit raggedy nag! You can go faster than that down the home stretch." Like I don't know. My eyes were on the monitors the whole time.
Okay.
Brian, for your number 5, which was let's see, we did a number 5 for you, right?
Correct. That was the college not being the best choice.
For Brian. Can't even remember what happened.
It was. I'm going to give you 2 points. It was a very, very valid entry into the topic, but I think it was just overall a little too overarching. So I'm going to give you 2 points. And then for the Uber stare down, boy, Mitch, that was a. I love that story about you. With your with your cold calls, that broke my heart. And Brian, you really hit me where I live with the blue light and my own anger towards that program. So this is a really tough one. But Mitch, just for your telephone voice, and I can see little 20-year-old Mitch doing that. I'm gonna give you the 3 points for the stare down.
Yeah, Woo! Not fair. You lived with him and know what that voice sounds like. Mitch has a lead here. That's bull roar. Woo!
All right. So that's gonna take us to round. So that's round 4 now. And Mitch, we're gonna have you do your number 4.
Sure. Yeah. So my number 4, I'm calling it's the Houston Astros treatment. It's welcome to the big leagues, kid. Now let me tell you what the next pitch is. And what this means is, in college at DePaul, I had twice as many. Just show up, put your forehead on the desk, take a nap, wake up, have a coffee, take another nap, and then turn in one assignment and you get an A classes. These are pure cupcake, baloney, just fluffing out your GPA classes. Explore Chicago, okay?
Oh God! Oh my God!
Give the listeners a rundown of what this was.
Sure. So at DePaul, they have Explore or Discover Chicago classes you take as freshmen, and these are classes where you explore Chicago. So there were a litany of subjects. I think one of them that I tried to get into, but it filled up too quickly, was food in Chicago, which they just went and ate at restaurants. And, maybe do that on your own time, you dumb kids. But the one I did was endurance sports in Chicago, it was called. And we just learned that, marathons took place in Chicago. And that, what bike races took place that were of distance. And my teacher was a former, Olympic level race walker. Okay, imagine that Malcolm in the Middle episode where Hal is racing. It's that level of intensity. And so his big day, this was his crowning achievement of the quarter. His coup d'etat with his full joie de vivre was on display. He brought us to Oz Park to teach us how to race walk. Now, it takes about 4 seconds to teach someone how to race walk. Because really all it is you just have to teach someone. You have to have enough confidence to not look like an ass as you swing your elbows and let your hips go loose and really get out there as you just walk as fast as you can.
You can't at any point have both feet off the ground. Isn't that the rule of race walking? Is that how it works? Okay.
Yes. Which is exactly how normal walking works too, which we all do naturally. And so
yeah, we've already taught everybody listening how to do it, and it took us 10 seconds.
Yeah, and so this class was in the first floor of the connected dorm of ours freshman year, and I went like the first 4 classes, and we didn't learn anything. Like he just was like, all right, now we're gonna learn about the Chicago Marathon, and I said to someone next to me basically like, it's a marathon. What else do we need to fucking know? Like unless he's teaching us how to train for it, which he wasn't. So I was very cool, and this class is at 8:30, so I just didn't go for a couple weeks. Came back, hadn't missed a thing. There hadn't been no assignments given out. Found out that we had a exercise journal due at the end of the quarter. You just had to write down what exercise you did on that day, or if you didn't, you said no exercise today. And then we had to write, do a test, which he gave all the answers to, so you could just have them in advance. And so I went to, I think about 5 class periods, and there was, I think, 30 total. Got an A in the class. I made sure one of the days to be there for the race walking demonstration, and I challenged the teacher to a race walk. And
of course you did.
Of course I did. And of course I was the asshole who I just jogged at one point to like catch up to him because he was ahead of me. And he couldn't accuse me of cheating because he wasn't absolutely sure, but you could tell he was really annoyed. So, yeah. So in my high school, granted, I went to a strange high school, Catholic, military, all boys, college prep, very, very academically competitive. And people would make you feel bad if you didn't get good grades, which isn't always the case at some schools. And so going from that environment where you wouldn't let people cheat off of you because you wanted to beat them, going to this where I'm doing Explore Chicago, and then also like I had granted I love the Coen Brothers, but I took Coen Brothers film course. That was an absolute joke. We just watched movies, and I'd already seen them all anyway, and the room was dark the whole time anyway. So like the ones I'd seen all the time, I just didn't go, and he never knew you weren't there because the room was dark the whole time as we were watching movies. So experiences like that.
That class cost you $600 a day.
Yes. Oh yeah. No. I did the math, and when we went there, I think it was about $24,000 a year to go to Ball. So you cut that in 3 to go, because it's by quarters or trimesters. Yeah. Yep. So it's $8,000 per trimester, and let's say you take 4 classes, it's $2,000 per class, 30 hours of class time per. It's $66.66 per hour at DePaul. So I spent that amount of money to sit and watch The Big Lebowski for the 38th time. And I could have spent that $132 buying 10 copies of it or whatever. So
Yeah.
I would say like freshman year Mitch though was the guy who would go to class and watch The Big Lebowski and then come home and be like, oh, what are we going to do tonight? And then you would suggest that we watch The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, it was because it's a great film. That's very true.
We watched it was that, Wedding Crashers, and Wayne's World 2 were just on a loop our entire freshman year.
Wait, no. Wayne's World. I would not put on Wayne's World 2. Wayne's World.
It was there was one instance where Mitch had gone out for St. Patrick's Day and was a little worse for the wear, and couldn't be roused from bed. And he had found himself locked in the room, and I couldn't get in. And the Wayne's World DVD menu was just going in a loop, and it had like the same 30 seconds of the movie for about 6 or 7 hours. And we had to wait for Mitch to wake up before we could get in and finally turn it off, so we would stop hearing from the other room the Wayne's World DVD menu. Anyways, I digress. I did also want to mention, like, there were a lot of these cupcake classes that we took. Like, my Explore Chicago was a movie class, and similar situation. But this backfired on me and a lot of other people, because this was around 2006 when this happened, and there was a class called Pirates of the Caribbean. At this point, this is right around the time the second movie in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise came out. And so I signed up, and like a lot of, it was a very popular, in-demand class, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be a cakewalk. And of course, on the first day, we watched like 45 minutes of the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. But then, after that, we were expected to go to the Newberry Library down in River North and check out primary sources, and we were going to have to do some real academic research on piracy in the 16th and 17th centuries. And at one point, literally, the professor threw all of us out of class, like 20 minutes in. He was like, none of you are taking this seriously. Just get out of here. He literally dismissed the entire class.
Wow.
And we were like, well, what did you really think we took this class to try and learn? Like, this is... Yeah, so...
This was the home ec or shop class of college.
Yeah.
Anyways, Brian, give me your number 4.
All right. Before I get to my number 4, my blow-off classes for DePaul, all of my math credits came from Intro to Excel, and then Intro to Microsoft Access, and all of my science credits came from Image, Optics, and Cinematic Motion. Is basically where you just calculated the focal length of something, and then that was it. So all of my math and science was done in those 3 classes.
Wow.
So great. Number 4. You'll get a job in your field. Bull fucking shit. This is one of the biggest broken promises, I believe. I know maybe 10 people that work in their field that I went to college with.
Brian, what's your job again?
It's not even me. I work in journalism now. Didn't take a single journalism course, and I kind of do YouTube stuff, but not really. Like, it's a very, very odd job. It's technically not in the field I studied. There was a J school at DePaul that I could have attended, but it was not my interest level. But just because you know how to use cameras and stuff, your job description changes. They also say if you go to college, you'll be worth $50K a year minimum the second you graduate. My first job, which was at a newspaper, so my field adjacent, we'll call it, paid $10 an hour. And I was working along someone with a master's degree that actually had a degree from a journalism school, making the same amount. So this was a newspaper. So please, everybody, please pay for local news. Thank you. Small little reminder. But yeah, $10 an hour starting, whether you had a bachelor's or master's degree. That's like saying, hey, Farmer John, if you buy this tractor, you're definitely going to have access to this farm, which will yield more product, making you more money. But what we're not going to tell you is that there are 600 other farmers on your block that also we sold tractors to and promised them this same farm. So how about instead you all just share it, make less, but don't forget to pay your tractor bill back, all right? Because we need to get those tractors paid for. So if you told that to somebody who was trying to start a business and actually yield a product, they'd be like, you're full of shit. This makes no sense. But yet we eat it up and we do it every year. So...
Well, this was definitely prevalent as we were in the film program, where every single person in the film program, and they let a lot of people in. It was you could if you got accepted into the school, you could just change your major at any time. This is any kids listening. If you want to get into a certain program, just get accepted into the school, then change your major later. Total easy loophole that people don't talk about enough. That's totally doable. But it turns out every single person in the film program thought they were going to have 10 Oscars by the time they were 28 years old.
Which I will talk about in my number 1 in great detail.
Also, like, kind of how, like, if you go to like a late night show on a Thursday at Second City here in Chicago, every single person, both on stage and in the audience, is convinced they're going to be on Saturday Night Live within a few years.
Yep.
And not to shit on everybody's dreams, but just enjoy what you're doing and be good at it. Don't anyways,
math also happens, folks. There are 2 jobs available and there are 4 million people. Please do the math.
Anyways, I digress. Brian, anything else to add there on your number 4?
No, I'm trying to be funny and it's just making me angry, so we should move on.
All right. Well, I'm gonna score this round. Mitch, the jog down memory lane you're taking me on here is wonderful. All those cupcake classes on DePaul. I could do a whole episode of cupcake college classes I took.
Oh.
Several stories came to mind, but we're on a time limit here. So I'm just gonna give you the 3 points, and we'll save those for a later day.
Great.
And then, Brian, again, this hits me, right where I live. It's just incredibly true. So many people have the degree with one title and they're doing another thing. So I got to give you 3 points as well. So we will move back over to Mitch for his number 3 now.
Sure. Okay. So let me start a little scene here. Yes. Yeah. Come on in. Yep. You're my 315. Yeah. I'm Jeremy. And who are you? And this is how all my conversations started with my academic counselors. And, they were so poor at their jobs. This was always a soul-rotting experience for me when going to figure out what classes I would take next, what classes I should take to set up another choice, perhaps, a bit of planning, like 2 years down the road, or if you will. In general, when you have an appointment with someone and they're there to help you, and you're paying, again, as I mentioned just before, $24,000 a year to go to school, they should know what your name is and have your file printed out maybe before you get there, and maybe have a bit of an idea of maybe even just what your major is, maybe even that, or maybe even like what year you are. That would also be nice. But so I would always spend the first 10 minutes of my appointments sitting there as they printed out my file, reread my file, maybe tried to play off that, no, I am their counselor. And I'd say, I didn't have you last time. And they're like, no, I've been your counselor, and that kind of thing. And then all to just, show me the worksheet they just printed out and that I have at home anyway, just to point at things and read what the paper says.
Oh, God.
Yeah. There's no worse exercise than that, because, you leave just going, you know what, I'll just fucking do it on my own. I don't need to waste my time to come down here and have someone else do this for me. But then it hurts at the very end. It feels like a nice little bell ringing, but instead of a bell getting rung, it's your ass getting rung. And that is, thank you. When you go to finalize your poli-sci minor, and you think you're done, and then they say, oh no, those the requirements for the poli-sci minor changed last year. Those 3 classes you took last year don't apply actually to any of your degrees, it looks like here. So you've got some extra classes just floating out there. So yeah, you're gonna have to pick some new ones to fill in the gaps. And that is the first time I've ever, I think, as a Minnesotan, this is tough to do, to yell at someone in a confined space like that. Because of course, the counselor's office is never large either in a downtown building. But I don't remember what his name was, but I did yell at him, and I said, what the fuck? Why wasn't I sent an email at the very least? And of course, well, no, I'm sure you were. You were sent an email. I went back and searched my whole email history. No email.
No way.
No communication. And I ended it, I remember, as I pounded the desk and said, fuck you, fuck this. And I got up and I walked out. So,
and it solved everything.
Not great.
Wow.
But then I was very, very angry because, that's a whole semester. That's a whole $8,000, not just whoop, right down. Also time down the tube. And if I hadn't been doing that, I could have taken more classes like in film or whatever it was. And so, but then I learned after I went and I was very upset, and I talked to a higher up in the academic counseling office, and they mentioned how basically you just have to ask for the off menu items and you get helped way more and can get just a lot more stuff done very quickly. And so for my capstone seminar, which at DePaul was like the end of your program, the end of your study, like a big paper you had to do, a thesis basically, I got to build my own thesis. I got an extension. I didn't have to take it with a class. I had it on my own. I met with my advisor, I think like 3 times over like 20 weeks. And I got to do a finance paper on film finance. And it was like an amazing ending to the experience. But like no one ever told me like these are the other options you have. That was never on the table. It was always just the same printed out sheet that I had at home, and they showed me again. So Brian, let's go.
So Mitch, you substituted. You're a man who orders off the menu, and yet substitution here saved you.
It wasn't even. I get what you're trying to do, and you can't paint me into that corner because
Want to rally you up, pal?
education is not food. Some would say
it's food. It's food for the brain. It's actually more important.
yeah, food for the brain.
It's nourishment.
This
I
would be like,
had a very different experience. My advisor, gentleman by the name of Gary Novak, who is a prominent member of the DePaul film faculty, one of my favorite people still to this day. And I remember being in his office, and because I had gone and I looked at the things, and things had changed, and I wasn't gonna get whatever. He was like, wait, what's the problem? I was like, well, this class doesn't count for that. That doesn't whatever. And he just he sat there in silence for about 5 minutes, just clicking and clicking and clicking. And then he looked back at me. He's like, all right, you're good. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I moved some stuff around. And I was like, okay.
The way it should be, yeah.
It worked out for me. So I can't share your despair, although I feel some sympathy.
I'm so happy for you, Nathan. So glad that good old Gary just fixed it for you in a couple minutes. When he was just not talking, you were just in his office doing nothing, just sitting there quietly. Okay, yeah, yep. He just fixed it all. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to ask for anything. Sure. Okay. Yep.
All right, Brian. Let's hear your number.
I'm bringing this down into the gutter. We are not coming out. I am angry
I'm not dignifying that with a response. I'm heading over to Brian.
I order as is. It's a secret menu. Is a secret menu. I don't change the secret menu. I just order off the secret menu. Go for it.
Number 3, the money. You'll have so much money. So, nothing makes my blood boil more than boomers, first of all, but mostly boomers that complain about modern generation whining over college. Don't go to college if you can't afford it. I didn't tell you to take out loans you can't repay. I worked my way through college. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not 1982, and I can't pay for college by working part-time slinging ice cream scoops, you old fuck. Oh,
yeah, you old fuck.
Yeah. When those boomers entered college at 18 in 1982, the average annual tuition at a public school in modern dollars was $1,000 and $1,031. And the average cost of a private college was $4,600 annual tuition. So basically, a 4-year private school costs as much as 1 year at DePaul, less than 1 year at DePaul. So at this rate, I will be starting to pay off my school until I'm at least 34 at a minimum, which means now I can start saving for a house at 34, hopefully to have a down payment by 40. Then I can start saving again, which means I'll have furniture in the house by age 42. And then if I save again, I can have food in the fridge by age 43. And by this point, I already plan to have 8 kids so they can tend to the farm because I got to pay off that tractor. Remember from the last one? Yeah. And then the cycle of agriculture versus industrial age starts all over again. And that's where I'm at my number 3, being just swarmed with debt that you cannot pay.
This does make it much more clear why your ultimate fantasy several episodes back was that 3,000 foot or 3,000 square foot
attainable,
house.
man. Attainable.
It's not sounding very attainable to the picture you're painting right now.
It's not, which is why I'm angry.
Well, I'm also enjoying the fact that we're complaining about boomers here, where this is the episode where the 3 of us has sounded more like grumpy old men than we ever have in our entire lives.
No, we're finally of the age where we can complain. It's our turn, damn it.
Yes. White man approaching middle age complaining. That's the winning formula.
That's what the world needs. It's what makes entertainment sellable. It will bring us funds and acclaim.
Well, I'm not the richest man who's ever lived, and I went to college, and I know a lot of my friends are in the same boat. And my question is, because I see people who I think have money complaining about how little money they have, and I just don't know where the money is.
I just think no matter what level you will complain. When you have nothing, you complain you have nothing. When you do have something, you complain you don't have more. And when you have more, you complain you don't have it all. So I think it's more of just a side effect of being a douchebag American than anything. So that's pretty much what it comes down to.
All right. Well, this round number 3 was depressing on all levels, so 1 point to each of you. We're gonna move on to Mitch's number 2.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I also had a pretty, I didn't have a normal college experience. I'll say that. And, I was one of maybe 15 at DePaul who had this experience, but so this is what my number 2 derives out of. And that, one of the broken promises of my time, at college was they always say you'll have time for ample study. You know, they say that you'll have the time to read all your books. They say you'll have the time to do all your homework. They say you'll have the time for volunteering opportunities, for internships. But the truth is, like, in my experience, when you have to, like, when you're practicing twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day leading up to the season, that doesn't leave enough time to go to class and do your homework. And outside of normal practice, like, you're expected to lift, of course, as well. And, like, you always got to work on your free throws. And then, like, you know, you're tired from practice, so classes are tougher. And then also, I mean, what does practice lead up to? Games. You have to travel to the games, whether it's a home game out at Allstate, you know, by the airport, or you have to travel to another state to play a game. And playing just with your friends at the park or in the gym, that's fun. That's easy. That's what I love to do. But when the TV cameras are there, that puts so much more stress on you as a player. And as a starting shooting guard with the offense squarely resting on my shoulders, like, the amount of stress I had to take on didn't leave my brain enough power, enough nutrients to be able to do school really great. And also, I have a bone to pick, and Nathan, I'm going to ask you this.
Okay.
The library, not open 24 hours, right, in Lincoln Park?
The John T. Richardson Library?
The John T. Richardson Library. Yes, that is one of the largest, another broken promise of DePaul. I needed that library open 24 hours a day because that was the only time I really had to study. On top of layup practice, on top of dunking practice, on top of running the offense practice. I mean, when was I supposed to find time to make any friends? You know, or go out and experience any of Great Chicago's cultural touchstones. I had no time for that. What did I have time for? I had time to average 18 a game, grab 7 boards, and dish out 4 assists. And no, I didn't get to go and play in the NBA. Yeah, I tasted Europe for a little bit, but, like, I didn't have time to really turn into a true student, you know, like, to really get enough skills that would apply forward. So I know I'm trying to let it go, all right? You know, like, I'm trying to let the stress go. It's been a long time, and I just want to let it go. I want to let it out. It was none of my teammates' fault. Maybe it was my coach's fault. Honestly, it could have been my coach's fault.
I do have a bone to pick with the coach at DePaul in those days.
Yeah, well, I know Nathan and I. Nathan tried to walk on, and we were roommates, so it was kind of awkward when he didn't, and I was playing the whole season. And Nathan, that whole time when you thought I was just disappearing to go party freshman year, I was at practice. I was shooting hoops. I was refining my skills. So that was just a bummer for me. I just wish I had more time to study because I didn't have it. I just didn't have the free time. So,
your glittering career was, you know, I hope the memories, at least, you know, nobody can take those away from you, the memories.
Absolutely not. No, and a lot of them are firmly entrenched on Facebook as well, which is great. So, and also, let me say, Facebook used to be something different. You know, people used to really connect on there. It wasn't just what they said in the commercials. People actually used to be able to use it to meet people. It was just a different time. Oh,
we're really sounding old now.
What was the guy's name who had the really good, he was in our year at DePaul, he left after his sophomore year, he had a really good NBA career. What was that guy's name?
Wilson Chandler.
Dub.
Dub. He's my boy. We're very good friends still.
I remember very clearly one day when I was in it was like a sociology class or something, and Wilson Chandler was enrolled in the class, and he showed up maybe 3 or 4 times. and we were taking a test, and he kept leaning over and like trying to ask me to copy his answer or like copy answers off of my sheet. And he succeeded a couple times. He left like 15 minutes early. He'd scribbled whatever, and then he disappeared. And then a year later, I'm sitting in the 23rd row of the upper deck at the United Center watching the Bulls and the Knicks, and Wilson Chandler is on the floor playing for the Knicks, and I just felt like such a fucking failure. A year earlier, he was copying off of me in sociology, and there, me, someone who fancied themselves a basketball player, had paid to watch him from the nosebleed seats as he dropped about 20 on an admittedly fairly injury-riddled Bulls team that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Nathan, to be fair, Dub was the hope of Benton Harbor. I mean, he was destined for the L, and I remember after that game too, because I remember me and him went and got wings at the Crossing after that, and he remembered you. He said he actually passed that test. All thanks to you, honestly. So,
yeah. Well, what would his career have been if he hadn't? He may have only played 11 years in the league instead of 12.
Who knows? I also want to thank you for letting me slip your homework out of your textbooks when you were sleeping all that whole first year and letting me copy off you. So that was great. You helped me out. So
I don't know how, since we were enrolled in entirely different classes, but I guess it worked out for you.
Well, and I didn't get great grades. I just had confidence going into the classes. Okay. So yeah,
that's half the battle.
Yeah, if I hadn't had that time to copy, I wouldn't have had time to perfect the pick and roll with Wilson. So yeah, sorry, I'm going on. I'm living in the past here. Let's keep moving.
All right. Well, we already covered Brian's number 2. So Mitch, I mean,
sure.
You've both delighted and infuriated me with your basketball analogy in equal measures. So I'm going to give you 2 points for that round. I want to give you 3, but I also want to give you 0. So 2 seems like the fair.
You should probably give me 3 because that was the shot I hit the most during those Big East games. So.
Now I'm definitely not going to. All right, well, this is going to bring us to our number 1s. And Brian, I would like you to reveal and defend your number 1, please.
Sounds good. The number 1 broken promise of higher education is you'll be educated. So I went to school with some real dumb shits. We'll call them to be nice. And
we're literally in the room. Right?
You were not in my class. You were not in my class. You were above me. So you were upperclassmen. And
don't you forget it.
I was beaten to death. I was beaten by you guys, and you put me in my place. I was hazed thoroughly. So you guys were way ahead of me, as we've mentioned. I'm sure you've had some of these similar people around your circle, either in finance or in the film school. My estimate was that 10% of freshmen had the work ethic to be successful in the industry. But the problem was, of that 10%, 7 thought they were going to be directors. And then 20% were those that were like, we liked watching movies, so we thought we'd go to college for it. And the other 70% were just liberal art generics that had money to go to school, but just didn't want to work at school. So you had a lot of those people in your groups. And if DePaul's brochure was to be believed, I was supposed to have been taught by not 1, but 2 Academy Award winners, both of which had already left the program before I had applied. So the false advertising was a lot of fun when I got there as a freshman.
Who were those 2 people supposed to have been?
One of them I think you had, the guy who was the sound mixer or designer for Dracula.
David Stone, my main man. Dave, if you're listening, shout out to David Stone.
David Stone, and there was somebody else in the brochure. I can't remember who, but it was those were 2 of the biggest things in there, and they were no longer with the program when I got there. So that kind of pissed me off. I had some blow-off classes. I had some good classes, but I never had a class that said how this is actually you're going to make money after you get out of school. There were no classes that taught corporate videography, which was the easiest way to make yourself available to companies in Chicago. Just learn how to be a quick documentary commercial shooter. There were a handful of folks from my class that have gone on to be successful camera operators, grips, and other below-the-line talent, but that was never the focus of any class that I was in. And when I attended, there were only 2 concentrations in the DePaul film school. It was either screenwriting or general. Those were your 2 concentrations for a BA.
And obviously the best classes I had were hands-on production and cinematography classes, or like coverage analysis. Like you could actually go out to LA and read coverage and write coverage and get a job doing so and learn a lot. So there were a couple of those that were legitimate. And I will never complain about those classes. So shout out to Pete Biaggi for his mentorship. That was a great cinematography thing I learned a lot from. But the amount of stupid people in class, in every class, was just like between the annoying loudmouths, the trust fund babies, the pretentious, my opinion is worth more than yours types. That's just what I couldn't handle anymore. And after a while, it just got so old. So it's like, yes, you learn the technical stuff, but what kind of was the good thing about having all this crap course is by the end, I wish it came earlier, but by the end of college, it's like, oh, here's everything I'm missing. So I'm going to go round out my education by myself. So it wasn't until after college that I was like, oh, I want to take some writing classes. That's when I got into the IO and the annoyance and taking all these things and learning from the late, great Michael McCarthy and now head of the Comedy Lab, Howard Johnson, who worked with Monty Python. And that's when I really started to understand the story writing process and all that stuff. So if I had to do it all over again, I wish I had all that IO stuff up front and then finish it off with the technical stuff of DePaul. But if I did it in that order, I wouldn't have met you two clowns. So hindsight is 2020.
Oh, that's a nice sentimental touch you added on the end there.
You gotta take your licks where they lie. And it's just like, you know what? That was the good thing about meeting the right people at the right time is priceless. So as much as you complain about all this, that is the most important thing.
I spent, 5 figures or 6 figures on DePaul, but I made 2 priceless friends.
Aww, cute.
Yeah, I wish I could remember their names. But then there's also you guys. I had, this is just something you reminded me of. It's not related to like a film course. This was just an oh my god moment I had. It was a political science course I was taking, an elective, and when we did the roll call, the professor was saying like, I'm gonna have a question and then I will, you just answer, like that's how we're gonna do the roll call. And it took, I think it was like 5 or 6 people. This was in 2007 or 2006, somewhere in that range, and it took 5 or 6 people before somebody got the answer right to who was the current vice president. Literally 5 or 6 people in a class at DePaul couldn't name Dick Cheney as the sitting vice president. And I remember sitting there thinking, everything that I thought this was supposed to be is not true.
Yep.
This is, it was shocking. That's what you're
that's totally what I'm getting at. That's exactly the type of people that you run into.
It really is. It really is. College is more than anything else really what you make of it. Is the bottom line, as all of life is.
And what's funny is that bottom 70% I mentioned, everything they paid to go to DePaul for could have been learned from the bonus features of their DVD collection they already had at home. Like, that's why they attended. Like, oh, I want to learn how like movies are made. I'm like, listen to the commentary, watch this. If you want to try and learn something, you need to actually make it attainable for yourself and pay attention and try things, not just watch movies.
Well, in the finance classes, I think the equivalent here was many dudes. They almost always were coming from a business internship during the day, because I did a lot of my business classes, 3-hour chunk once a week at night, and so they'd be in their like business dress, and they'd have their copy of The Art of the Deal next to their notebooks. Yeah, there were so many young men who had Donald Trump books with them. I can remember it was
including our classmate, the guy who graduated with us, George Stephanopoulos, or no,
George,
not him.
Papadopoulos.
Stephanopoulos is a very different guy.
Yeah.
George Papadopoulos. That guy. Yep. Yeah, did you ever? Yeah, I met him. Did you meet him when we were in school?
He was a poli-sci major. I'm sure I probably had a class with him. I don't remember him though.
I had a class with him. Fucking asshole. Yeah. Totally deserved to go to jail.
Yeah.
Awful. Fuck that guy. Fuck you, wherever the fuck you are. Like, I hated him, and then I forgot about him entirely until he made the news for being a Trump acolyte who committed crimes, and
Yeah.
he sucks.
Yeah.
The good thing about my program, though, is out of the 10 people or so, like 6 of them are women who are doing fantastic in the industry. One of which is a successful producer. One of which is like an underwater cinematographer. Another one's a regular cam op. Another one's a grip. So I'm like, that was the one thing that was good about our program. It was like a lot of equal opportunity was coming out of it. And I hope it's gotten better than what it was when we were there. But that's one good shout out for the program.
Wow.
All right, well, on that positive note, let's rip it on over to Mitch Brinkman for his number one.
Sure, yeah. So my number one, in a way, is a continuation a little bit of my number two, but also I think it's a great description or example of how the fine print in college policy can kind of trip you up a little bit. And so my number one broken promise of higher education, in my case, of course, DePaul University, was that the unlimited meal plan wasn't really unlimited. So as a basketball player, I was
true.
entitled to as much food and drink as I could, carry, eat, consume at the DePaul Student Center. Now, this came to a head when, one, the food was at best, but, the drinks, okay selection. They did have the Odd Wallace smoothies. Those weren't too bad, but of course, you read the label and you find out, wow, 40 grams of sugar. That's not good for, a finely tuned athlete's bodies, especially one that's dropping 17 a game, dishing 4 assists and grabbing 7 boards, in the Big East, a very competitive conference. But it came to a head one day when I was at Outtakes Cafe, which is on the first floor of the DePaul Student Center, which used to be right next to the student, like the fan shop. But they moved it because I don't think anyone was really buying apparel. Which makes sense. Yeah. The DePaul Catholic University Blue Demons, plain possessed. Again, it makes no sense. But I digress. So I'm at the Outtakes Cafe, and all I want is an Odd Wallace smoothie, and like a plastic cup of grapes where they've taken all the grapes off the vine and they put it in the cup for you, because like you can't take them off yourself. Like you couldn't just get a vine of grapes or whatever. And also there's like a couple chunks of like shitty melon in there with it. One of those cups. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
A fruit cup, yes.
Yeah, the melon cup, yeah.
Yeah, the melon cup with like the grapes and stuff. Okay, so, but it's a long line. And I have an unlimited meal plan. So I just step past the line. I figure, this is free to me anyway. So I grab the smoothie, I grab a fruit cup, and there's a roast beef cheddar sandwich there too. So I snag that from the cooler, and I walk out. Donna, who's running Outtake, says, "Hey, hotshot, stop right there." I think she's talking to someone else at first because, again, unlimited meal plan, supposedly. She calls the security on me. So now DePaul campus police is there. They have me in cuffs, and they've slammed me up against the wall. My Odd Wallace smoothie goes to the ground. It doesn't break because it's in a plastic bottle, but the sandwich is toast. That thing's busted apart. The fruit cup is broken open. The fruit's all over the floor. I've crushed a couple of grapes by accident. But they bring me to a security office, which is not as nice as you think it would be. It's like a cement room, basically, with a metal table. And I get dressed down as if I'm some kind of criminal who's been stealing. And I keep trying to tell them, I have an unlimited meal plan. I am a basketball player. Varsity. I start. I drop 17 a game. I dish out 4 dimes, and I grab 7 bounds. Again, they're like, we don't give a shit. The cops are on their way. And I get arrested. Okay? And this is all because I find out the meal plan isn't actually unlimited. I only get as much food as I want at breakfast, lunch, and dinner times, and this was mid-afternoon or whatever. So, huge broken promise. A night in the slammer for me, and the coach almost didn't let me play the next game. Thankfully he did, because we beat St. John's. You're welcome, coach. So that's my number one broken promise. Like, if you're a basketball player like I was, if you're 6'6", 220, dripping wet like I was, you're hungry. You need fuel to run the engine, and this engine runs hot. So that's my number one.
That was I remember the meal plans and the controversies surrounding the meal plans and how unlimited was a very misleading name. But despite the fact that I lived with you for all of freshman year and can vouch for your whereabouts and your basketball abilities as we were on the same intramural team, you finally poked a hole in your own story.
What?
Because I saw every basketball player steal food at the student center almost every day, and none of them ever got caught. So you have been exposed, sir. You were not on the basketball team.
No.
Your story does not check out.
No, I'm 6'6".
I saw.
I'm 220. Sad.
I saw Sammy Mejia walk out with a patty melt unpaid for almost on a daily basis. So yeah, 1 point for your final round. Brian, you're getting 3 because you hit on the touchstone that I would like our young and impressionable listeners to carry from this is that your education is only beginning when you leave college. You got to do it on your own. As Mark Twain said, don't ever let your schooling get away in the way of your education. I think that's what you were trying to say, and I'm attributing it to you and not Mark Twain, so 3 points to you. And then I will now tally the scores and
Anyway,
Brian. Brian scored 9, and Mitch scored more than 9. Mitch, you are the winner.
This is not
10.
no.
10 exactly to be.
Woo! I'm getting real sick of this.
Number one.
Real sick. And it's always Nathan's fault because he's the host when you and I go head to head. So this is Nathan's fault.
You guys,
Well,
all right.
Hopefully the real winner will be all of us. And after they listen to this episode, those people at DePaul who call me once every 6 weeks asking for money will stop.
Yeah, please stop.
Real tired of those phone calls.
Okay, winner speech. Winner speech. Here we go. All right, guys.
Is that a thing we do on this show?
Apparently now.
Yeah. Chant along with me. D-E-M-O-N-S-D-E-M. Chant with me. D.
What are you saying?
I will not be doing this.
I can't hear.
D-Paul B-ball.
Brian, ring the bell, Brian. Ring the bell.
Oh, guys.
I never
bring me
attended
back to
a
my
game,
college
so I don't know.
days.
I never
This is
attended
what I
a
used to
game.
hear in the stands when I'd be draining threes from the corner, and then I'd get fouled, and I'd hit the ground, and I'd wake up in my bed with a hangover. All right.
All right, the game is over, and that leaves us with me, Nathan Hennenfent, delivering the Fast Five, the top 5 greatest numbers of all time.
Yeah.
19th century German mathematician Leopold Kronecker famously uttered that God created the integers, all else is the work of man. Well, God put some more work into some numbers than others, but here are the 5 greatest. Number 5 is 5. 5 is a number that truly does it all. You can slap 5, give me 5, take 5, and high 5. It's the traditional number of fingers on each hand and the number of players in a basketball starting lineup. From the Pentagon in Washington to the pentagram in your local satanic temple, the number 5 is a symbol of power. There are 5 pillars of Islam, 5 senses, and 5 members of the 90s boy band 5. In the last year, the number 5 has been pulling its weight as the perfect number to list and debate about on your favorite 5-themed podcast, Über Cinco.
Yeah.
Number 4. There are 4 sides to a square. To your dinner table, there's the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and the Fab 4 of John, Paul, George, and Ringo. 4 just has a regalness to it. There are 4 majors in golf and tennis, 4 Ninja Turtles, 4 Ghostbusters, 4 ladies on both Sex and the City and the Golden Girls. 4 possesses a mathematical symmetry and an intuitive utility that makes it a standby number in any team situation. Number 3. 3 is company, 3 is a crowd, and 3 is the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. You can start at the count of 3, make your pick in a game of Rochambeau, or rock out in a power trio. There were 3 amigos, 3 witches in Hamlet, and Hocus Pocus. You had Ron, Harry, and Hermione, as well as Larry, Curly, and Moe. Caesar, Crassus, and Pompey Magnus formed the first triumvirate in ancient Rome, and Han, Luke, and Leia were the triumvirate that dominated the greatest trilogy in movie history. But be careful with 3. Sometimes the promises of adding a third to an already successful duo can end up spoiling everything that was already working, such as in a Menage a Trois or the Godfather film franchise. Number 2.
Boom.
2. No higher authority than God himself said that when two are gathered in my name, he is present. And what duos have we had over the years? Siegfried and Roy, Laurel and Hardy, Holmes and Watson, Ren and Stimpy, and Mary, Kate, and Ashley. Flash the peace sign, declare victory, or drop a deuce. The number 2 is an essential part of your life every day. Day and night, good and evil, Miller Lite and Bud Light, the questions of duality are ever present. Yes, 2 is a truly exhilarating and exotic number, especially if the 2 are you and me, baby.
Oh.
And the number 1 greatest number of all time is 38,279. Yes, just once in human history has perfection been achieved, and it is easily calculated in numerical form. 38,279 is the exact number of points scored by Michael Jeffrey Jordan in his NBA career, both in playoffs and the regular season, each more climactic and majestic than the last. 38,279. What a number. And that's this week's edition of Über Cinco. Joining me today has been the King of Kings from out in Berwyn, Illinois.
Brian Ernst.
And our special little guy,
Mitch Brinkman.
And I've been Nathan Hennenfent. As Bisbear always says, if it's brown, drink it down. If it's black, send it back. Auf Wiedersehen and adios.
You've just listened to Über Cinco, a production of UBK Studios. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your fine podcasts from.
If you like what you hear and want to support the show, please visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/UBK Studios. Every little bit helps us keep the lights on and the bill collectors at bay.
Keep tabs on us on all the social media at UBK Studios, and most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see that we really are just a bunch of good Midwestern boys.